Hello everybody, welcome back to Jubes & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, Barry Gardiner and Zia Yusuf. I've got to tell you, there's not a lot of people sharing your optimism that we're not going to have an early general election. What do you think to that? If you just tune in, we were just asking about the prospects of, do you think that we could see ourselves in a situation where we have an election earlier than planned? Barry is confidently saying no. Do you share that optimism or not? Victoria, you've got in touch saying that you was at that Unite the Kingdom rally at the weekend. You're saying you feel like people are portraying you as troublemakers. You're saying you're absolutely not that, and you had a wonderful day. I'll come to that, worry not. But of course, we speak often, don't we, about these not so small boats, massive things, by the way, often with the capacity of a double-decker bus. Anyway, I digress. We talk about what the solution is. Well, now apparently we're going to see it firsthand because we've spoken about this returns deal with France. These planes are apparently going to start deporting migrants back to France this week, Barry Gardiner.
Yeah, well, and quite rightly too. But of course, this is only a pilot scheme, and it's not enough simply to be sending some of the people who come over illegally and who have no right to be here back to France. But the value of this is that we're now cooperating with our international partners. We have a legal agreement with them, and that means that we can now begin processing people who may have a right to be in this country through the Refugee Convention, processing them in other countries, starting with France, of course, and that is a big step forward, because if you can stop people on the route here, nobody wants to put their lives at risk in a small boat on the Channel. That is a risky thing to do. And if you can actually begin processing people before that, I think you'll stop some of that flow, and that's a very good thing.
They seem to be quite keen to get in those not-so-small boats, I've got to say. People often get in touch with me and say, Michelle, if you are able to claim asylum in a country, why don't they just get a flight here then and claim asylum when you get here?
Because the airlines don't allow you to board that flight unless you have the appropriate documentation.
Ah, you see, and this is the key. If you're trying to claim asylum, why wouldn't you have the appropriate documentation?
Well, very often because you've escaped from persecution. And look, this was built by the UK and other countries after the Second World War in response to the refugee crisis we had in Europe after the Second World War.
Conventions. I'm asking you about the individuals. If you want to, if you're leaving, if you're fleeing persecution, aka France,
you don't have time to get a visa from the country that you're ending up in. That's the point.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind. The more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
But many of these people, I would put it to you, and we know this as a fact, we've seen video footage of it, they don't even have their documentation because they discard them themselves.
Yeah, so, I know that some of the criminal gangs force them to shred their passports. Yeah,
but they're coming from France, and they're not coming from 1947 France.
No,
neither they're coming from 1944 France. They're coming from 2025 France, Barry. Come on.
You seriously
saying that there's any any relevance of that refugee convention of 1951 to today. There is none whatsoever. Britain must disapply that convention in its entirety with regards to law in this country. And by the way, talking about the guidance is that initially it's going to be around 50 a week that might be taken back to France, which would mean even if the boats stop tomorrow, which they won't, it will take about 70 years to send back just the people who have arrived by boat over the last 7.5 years. And by the way, the boats are not going to stop tomorrow. And actually, as we speak, if you take the last few months, 19 times more people have arrived weekly in this country via small boat than would be sent back in terms of that 50. So this is just another example, Barry, of this Labour government taking the British people for mugs. I keep saying it, thinking that infantilising the British people, thinking they're mugs, and just having this Clinton card policy of one in, one out. And it's deeply offensive to the British people, because the people watching this programme know the reality.
I tell you what takes British people for mugs. And it's people like yourself who are saying it's all really easy. These other guys, they didn't want to solve the problem.
You don't want to solve the problem.
It's all really easy.
You need to pass legislation, Barry.
If only we got into power.
You need to pass, Barry.
If only we got into power, we could do it.
If you leave the ECHR and disapply all of those protocols, all of those international treaties, there's no way that would ever happen under Starmer, because he is literally a human rights lawyer. He is on the record as saying he prefers Davos to Westminster, Barry. So yes, it is actually very easy if you actually have a majority of MPs in the House of Commons who want to stop the boats, and if you have a Prime Minister who wants to do it.
Talk over them if you like.
No, we don't do talking over. Go on, Barry.
The point is, the Conservatives had 14 years to do it. They tried. They tried very hard to do it, right? And they didn't manage it. We are trying to do it, and we are beginning to manage to get the things that the Conservatives couldn't do, those international agreements, making sure that we get the police and the money in to disrupt what's going on. So, they had 14 years, they didn't manage to do it, but the idea that they didn't want to do it is complete nonsense. And it does take people for mugs if you go on saying to people, you know what, the other lot don't want to succeed, that's why you need us. People understand this is not as simple as you and Reform are painting it.
Well, then why the Tories had 14 years? By the way, no disagreement there. They were a catastrophe.
But this has been a thing for 14 years, Barry.
ECHR, they did. By the way, leaving the ECHR is a necessary but insufficient precondition. So long as that hasn't even happened, you're not even going to get close to solving the problem. So again, I keep saying this. If you have the political will, if you have courage, if you have a leader who wants to do it and a majority in the House of Commons, it is actually easy to do.
Well, look, you at home, you are the all-important deciders of whether or not you ultimately believe. Do you think that the Labour Party has the political will or not? If you saw the scenes unfold at the weekend, the amount of people that took to the street with very clear messaging around this, many people would suggest that the answer to that question is no. People don't have that faith.